Welcome back, children. And today we are studying chapter 8, Economy and Occupation. Before starting the chapter, let us understand what is an economy. An economy is an economic system or an organization where production, distribution, exchange of goods and consumption of goods takes place. So it is a system where goods are produced, goods are distributed, goods are exchanged, and goods are consumed by the consumers. How is economy classified? Economy is classified on two bases. On the basis of ownership, that is who owns the economy, and on the basis of occupation, that is what type of occupations are there in that economy. So on the basis of ownership, we have three types of economy: capitalism, socialism, and mixed. Capitalism is that type of economy where the means of production are owned by private individuals, and therefore there is existence of private sector, that is private industries. Socialism is that type of economy where means of production are in the hands of the government, and therefore that sector is called as public sector. So industries are owned by the government or by the public, and therefore we say public sector, public exams. Okay, you have heard this word. And mixed economy is that type of economy where there is coexistence of both capitalism and socialism. That is, some industries are owned by private individuals and some industries are in the hands of the government. So after understanding this, can you say what type of economy has India adopted? Yes, mixed economy, because we have many industries which are in the private sector, and there are many industries, or rather few industries now, which are in the hands of the government, that is in the public sector. In private sector, profit is their main aim. In socialist country, socialism, that is the government makes all the decisions, whether it is good or bad for the people. Normally, it is considered to be good for the country, but not always. Like, for example, China has socialism, socialist type of economy, and there the government takes all decisions. Okay, they decide what is good or what is bad for their people. And mixed economy is where certain industries are in the capitalist, that is in the hands of the private individual, and they are regulated by the government. So the public sector industries are there, but also the government has a little control over the capitalism. For example, the capitalists, they use the water resources, energy resources, electricity, roads, railways, etc. And in turn, the government gets tax from them. Okay, so then on the basis of types of occupations, we have three types of economy again: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay, and depending on these occupations, we have three types of sectors. Then those industries that are in the primary are called primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Now, primary sector, we need to understand these industries are directly based on raw material. So they directly use the raw material. For example, collecting honey, okay, or agriculture, where we directly depend on the nature. Secondary sector processes the material, raw material obtained in primary sector into finished goods. Therefore, secondary sector is normally includes industries, all types of industries. For example, if sugarcane production is a primary occupation, comes under agriculture, sugar production in the industry comes under secondary sector. And the tertiary sector, of course, includes selling of sugar, that is shops. All types of shops and businesses come under tertiary sector. Now this part, there's a graph at the beginning on page 52. Okay, read the graph and answer the questions. This is not for 2020-21, but remember the cancelled portions does not really make a lot of sense, because ultimately we need to understand the economy of India and Brazil and also compare it with the developed nations like USA. Therefore, I will go through it very quickly, though we will not take it much in detail. But understanding is necessary. Therefore, for understanding's sake, I will take this graph as well. Look at the graph. We have the three. Look at your textbooks. Okay, because the index is not really clear here. You have Brazil in blue, India in red, and USA in green. USA's economy is far ahead of India and Brazil. So therefore, USA comes under developed nations. India and Brazil you find not very far from each other. They are moving almost hand in hand. So which country's national income was highest in 2016 and was it? And how much was it? Okay, and was it how much? Okay, and how much was it? So naturally it's very clear. The green one is far ahead. So the answer is USA. And how much was it? Look at your textbooks. It's above 1800, between 1800 and 1900. So it is 1850 million US dollars. The unit is million US dollars. Comparing India and Brazil, which country has a higher national income in 1980? Now Brazil is slightly higher. Look at the picture of 1980. Brazil's national income is slightly higher than India. Comparing India and Brazil, which country had a higher income in 2016? Now India has outbeaten Brazil and Brazil is leading now. India has outbeaten Brazil and India is leading, because you find in 2016 India's graph higher than that of Brazil. Tell the difference between the GNP, gross national product, okay, also called as gross domestic product or gross national income. These are all one and the same. So tell the difference between GNP of Brazil and India in 2016. Okay, so India is more or less, we will not calculate here because that is not really needed, but India is somewhere near 200 and India is 200 in 2016 and Brazil must be 180. So the difference will be around 20 million US dollars. Then tell the difference, okay, so calculate the difference between the national income of developed and the developing countries in 2016. Now USA is way ahead with 1850. India is around 200 or maybe 205. You may take it, and Brazil is somewhere near 180. Okay, so you can minus that and you will get the difference. Okay, we will not take it much in detail. Now this is also not for 2020-21 exams. Okay, but for us to understand, excuse me. Okay, let us understand now in India and in Brazil. So here you find India and here you find Brazil. What about banking? What type of sector is banking? In India, some banks are private, some are public, owned by government, like the SBI. Okay, SBI is owned by the government, and there are so many other private banks. So we have both private as well as public. This is important so that we understand the remaining part. As I told you, they have cancelled certain parts, but they are necessary to apply our knowledge to understand the remaining part of the chapter. And therefore, I cannot omit these parts. I'll explain to you. It's up to you whether you want to skip or you want to listen. Okay, now in Brazil also banks are owned by private as well as public. What about railways? Railway in India is largely public. Okay, but under the Modi government, it has been privatized since July 1, 2020, and government has thrown it open to private individuals to come forward. Okay, and in whatever way, either manufacture or buy, okay, trains, bogies, etc., and privatize it. To some extent, the food, etc., on the trains has been privatized. Okay, but not the entire railway. But right now, from July 1, 2020, it has been for privatization. In Brazil, railway is under private as well as public sector. What about airways? In India, we have private airways, okay, and public as well. Like Air India is public and Jet, etc., are private airways as well. And Brazil has also airways under private and public sector. Electricity production is largely public in India. Okay, so far private individuals have not come forward for electricity supply. And in Brazil also it's largely public. Now we need to understand that these industries, okay, are mainly public. The reason is because it requires huge investments. And so private people do not have that much of investments. What about iron and steel? Largely public, though we do have a few private like Tata Industry. Okay, then largely public even in Brazil. As I told you, they require huge investment and the benefits take many years. Okay, so the profit comes after many years. Health, we know there are many private hospitals, so it's definitely private and public, as well as in Brazil it's private and public. Education, you have private schools, most of you are studying in private schools and few of you are studying in municipality or public schools as well. So we have both again, and Brazil also has large. Now here there is a contradictory. Brazil has more public schools and less private schools. Okay, because in India education has been more commercialized. And the government does not invest much in education, and therefore the quality also goes down, and so people prefer private schools. And then telecommunication, they are both now, of course, Jio, you know very well, most of you are using Jio nowadays. Okay, we have Airtel, Jio, and only BSNL is public. But I've heard of late that even BSNL now is going to be privatized to some extent, because of their way they handle it and no profit or whatever be the reason. So in India telecommunication is private and public, and in Brazil also it's private and public. Now the reason for explaining this is, now you need to understand when we say what type of economy India and Brazil has. We have said it's a mixed economy. So certain industries are owned by private individuals and very few industries are in the hands of the government or public sector. Defense in our country is completely under public sector as a rule, and probably it will never come for privatization. The reason being security. Okay, the security threat that goes along with it. Therefore, an economy, these type of economies like of India and Brazil, where we saw most of the sectors are in private as well as in public, they are called as mixed economy, where there is a coexistence of both public and private sectors. So both India and Brazil have mixed economy. Then classify the following activities by ticking in the respective columns. This is again not for your exam, but for understanding sake, I would definitely teach it, because then your concepts become clear and you can understand the remaining part of the chapter. Television and broadcasting. Now, is it a primary? Does it depend on raw material? Does it process the raw material, or is it selling or service? Any type of service comes under tertiary sector. So I'm sure now you know television and broadcasting is a service, so it comes under tertiary sector. Tertiary sector is also called as the service sector, like water supply, electricity supply, transport, all these, and businesses, banking, teaching, all come under tertiary. Beekeeping, definitely, yes, the primary sector. Coir and rope making. Okay, now rope manufacturing, so it can come under secondary, though at times you may also consider it as primary. Okay, because rope making and all uses the raw material directly, but converting it into something else. Therefore, we can take it as secondary sector. Both can be correct. Jaggery making production means secondary sector. Producing blades, producing again, and plows, definitely secondary sector. Construction of houses. Okay, so construction services come under tertiary sector. Extracting iron ore, extracting directly from the resources, so primary. We are not processing it into finished goods. Automobile production, where will it go? Yes, secondary. Rice production, the word production is confusing, but don't forget it's agriculture depending on natural resources. Teaching comes as a service, so teaching goes under tertiary sector. Driving buses, service, again tertiary sector. Providing lodging and boarding, can you tell now? Yes, that is tertiary sector, because these are service sector. In the next video, I will take the graphs on page 53. Okay, and economic activities. Unless you understand the first part, you will not be able to understand the remaining part, and therefore, though it is omitted for questioning, I have explained. Okay, so I'll see you soon with contribution of sectors in GDP in my next video. So keep watching. God bless you and thank you.